Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever time zone you are. This is Dee, personality, and I have come up with an idea of something to post today to hopefully share experience from my youth and perspective and going forward in what is an ever changing world right now, both at our homes and globally. Um, Being 45 and being in that category labeled as Generation X, whether or not you see that as a good thing or as a bad thing, it's just a label to me. Yes, I happen to be of Generation X and have some of those qualities, but I try not to let that identity define me. But growing up in the school that I went to, one of the things I hated most in my elementary school days was we had something called weekly current events. And it was where us as students had to find something from our newspapers. We had criteria. It had to be real news, not tabloid news, not necessarily something from opinions or editorials, but a way of learning and education on how to consume news and journalism. In those days, it came in the form of newspapers and news on television, um, and be able to read the articles and analyze them critically and come to thoughts on them. So, part of our weekly assignment was to find an article and to write a summary paragraph and share it with the class. And that was something which we were graded on our ability to do so, not whether or not our opinions were right or wrong, but to sort of teach in school how to take the information that we are given through independent news media. Well, at the time it was independent news media, um, to understand what's going on in our world. And fast forward to today, where I am a parent to a now adult. So I think my progeny is technically in Gen Z, not quite Gen Alpha, um, but I'm actually relying on understanding communication differences between the generations, by trying to use my position as a parent to see how the younger generations are learning today. Where do they look for their news? And the general feeling of the world. And I don't think it's any surprise to a lot of people that a lot of the younger crowd, and by younger I mean everybody younger than me, 45, are probably relying a lot on online resources for their news, whether they be dedicated news outlets or even social media platforms with how information is shared. And not saying that that's right or wrong, but the times have shifted. Newspapers are not in print as much as they used to be when I was a young child, and information does flow out faster, and it can be very difficult to keep up and find and read and interpret and look at and think critically. And a lot of us are really struggling with being bombarded with information and trying to understand what's important. And I came across a online, it was posted by NPR, it's on the NPR website, And I did take a couple screenshots to reference portions of what was reported through NPR, that if I were a child doing a current event type assignment like I was in my youth, something about that article and the way I read it, I found some things that are a bit concerning to me. They're very scary. Whether or not they are good things or not will be determined by who's on, quote unquote, the right side of history as we move forward. But what it is basically, as the State Department is deciding to remove posts made by politicians prior to when they were in office and archiving them to where the information is still available, can be requested through the Freedom of Information Act, but it's going to be an extra step that's going to be difficult for a lot of people that usually rely on quick in-your-face information. So whether it's the personal posts or whatever of individuals that they put on social media, with respect to the NPR article, the company X, formerly known as Twitter, was who was specified as where this was occurring. But as I got through the article, I noticed that there are other places where information that had been easily accessible online as public information. For example, the CIA also recently removed their work factbooked from being readily viewable online. So occurring around the same time that there's changes occurring in the availability of what is on social media when it's related to previous politicians or individuals before they were in politics, or even streaming of political events themselves. I would encourage anybody who sees this video, which is probably not going to be a lot because I am not a big creator. I don't intend to be. I don't consider myself an influencer. I am just another person with access to the internet, trying to balance a virtual, digital, online presence and identity with my in-person identity, while being true to who I am and also remaining, feeling a sense of safety and security in my person and the abilities that to be able to say and share my opinions under, the whole freedom of speech, as should be in the country of the United States. But yes, obviously times they are a changin', and there's definitely some songs to that effect. But I realize not everybody is a fan or consumer of news articles regularly, or even knows what to consume. But it was something that I came across. The article was posted today, February 7th, 2026, and going through it, I do see that there are changes occurring, and from a doom and gloom conspiracy side, it does appear to be very 1984-ish Orwellian control and hide the information, which, again, we won't know if what's happening now is for the greater good or not. All I can say is that I have noticed that things are happening. Information that has typically been very easily accessible by the public is getting another layer barrier of accessibility. It's not going away completely, but it is changing, and it could be something that may not be for the benefit of the greater good. Or conversely, as we move into the age of information and those who follow topics and discuss on how the landscape has changed globally, and we've gone from basically the Cold War era to the age of information war era. And I can see the flip side of the coin where controlling the free access to public information, putting some extra steps to it, could potentially have a benefit if you are seeing it from the perspective of being in the age of information and being in information warfare. So putting that personal disclaimer on my opinions, obviously I do have opinions on how I think this could go, but my intent in sharing this is to share something that I came across and to provide the resource for others to look at and read and make their own interpretations as we are navigating through a very changing landscape and times on a home and global level, and that I also honor and respect others' opinions and views and interpretations. I believe that information should be something that we can access, whether it's easily accessible or not. My concern is with some of the younger generations having to do a few extra steps and not having it so readily available that they might miss some of the things that are going on, and not laying any blame to anyone, but just to reiterate that we are in a very critical juncture right now, very important time in our history. And I support critical thinking. I don't support hate. I don't support extremism. But I do believe in, if someone sees something and it feels important, sharing it to a greater audience. And I believe the article that I read on NPR today is something that's important enough to, if I were in the classroom, I would choose it as a current event article to bring in, to summarize, and to discuss with my peers and my educator. And that is my intent. And hopefully, take it for what you will, but do have a wonderful day. Try to find joy in everything, and we as people will still persevere. That's what we do as humans. We go through our trials, but we usually come out better for it in the end. So never lose hope, even though things may seem a little dark and dismal right now. Just keep plugging, keep informed, and know that internal power is the true power. Peace.